just Joe public mate, what can I do? And then they're controllable. So when you look at the history, which I'm writing about, as well as the modern stuff, you find that the reason that this network, which controlled the arrival and the occupation by the European nations of the Americas and South Africa and Australia and other places, the reason when those European nations went into these countries, they destroyed the ancient knowledge, they destroyed the native knowledge as much as they could. As a friend of mine in South Africa, a Zulu shaman, said they milked the minds of the shaman and then killed him, is because they had to destroy vestiges, as much as they could, of what the native peoples knew about the true history of the world and what they knew about the true nature of who we are and the nature of life. So this Illuminati network could, from Europe, create an illusion of history and an illusion of who we are, to disconnect us from essential knowledge through which we can express the full magnitude of who we all are.
And the entire witch trials then had nothing to do with eliminating Satanism. It had to do with eliminating the true knowledge of who we were through, and disconnecting us with the universe through massive acts of terrorism, and here too against the native people, residential schools.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned many things, but one key thing I've learned is when the forces that control information and write history want me to look over there, I instinctively look over there. And when you do a bit more research into these witch trials, you find that those who were accusing these people of Satanism were themselves Satanists. And the people they were accusing were those in that community who had realized that they were Satanists and what was going on. And so they just reverse it, and then they create a situation in which the opposition is removed. And you know, this has happened all over the world. One of the things that you can follow with these Illuminati and the bloodlines through which they operate, from ancient Babylon to literally today, and some of the most famous people in the world, is that satanic ritual, what we call satanic ritual, and blood drinking and human sacrifice has been part, an absolute fundamental part of their modus operandi all the way through, and there has to be a reason for this. What people tell me is that these particular bloodlines, and you know, there's not that many of them at this level, they are the result of the interbreeding of a reptilian race thousands and thousands of years ago with the mammal-based human race. And the splicing of the DNA combination means that these particular bloodlines, and like I say, there's not many at this level, can actually move between reptilian and human form. And what they're doing, I understand from people who've been on the inside, is that they have the ability to open the mammal codes in the DNA and manifest as a human form while they're operating in mainstream society, and then switch back to their base form, which is a reptilian form, when they are in a position where they can do so without being identified. What's happening more and more, it seems, and I think it's to do with the vibrational change on the planet, which is increasingly being monitored, is they're finding it more and more difficult to hold those mammal codes open and manifest in human form. And more and more people, I know from my own experience, are seeing this shape shift, this move from one form to another. And from what the people on the inside tell me, and it's a number of different people now, for some reason, if they drink human blood, mammal blood, it helps them enormously. In fact, it seems to be almost essential to keep these mammal codes open so that they can hold human form in among the general public. And so it makes sense of why wherever you follow these bloodlines I'm identifying, from ancient Babylon to today, blood drinking and human sacrifice goes with them. And if people knew some of the famous people that are into this stuff, it will make their hair curl. Or if it's curly, it'll make it straight.
Well, why don't we have a look at some of these famous people and what their practices are?
Well, the one that comes up more than any other in relationship to shape-shifting and pedophilia and this ritual is George Bush. George Bush is one of these bloodlines that goes back to the ancient world. He is related to the Queen of England, and the British royal family were massively involved in this. And interestingly, you know, when you look at the history of the Bush family, you're looking at so much of the history in the 20th century of the Illuminati network. His father, Prescott Bush, was one of the funders of Hitler. Prescott Bush was a major executive in the Harriman Empire, which also was the major funder in the first half of this century of the eugenics race purity movement. And the Rockefellers are massively connected into the Harrimans also, and it was the Rockefellers who funded a guy called Dr. Ernst Rudin, who had a whole floor of a university in Germany before the last war, who was Hitler's race purity expert. And the Harrimans brought him over to New York to a eugenics conference just before the war and gave him a major eugenics award for his work in Germany. Of course, it manifested as the race purity belief of the Nazis.
What can we do about this?
Well, you see, for me, there's two ways of approaching something that you want to change. One is to find a solution for it, which is normally makes things worse. And the other thing is removing the cause of the problem, which I think is infinitely more wise. And the cause of the problem is that humanity has allowed itself not just to become a herd of sheep, but also a herd of sheep that's policing itself. You can only, if there's not many of you and you want to manipulate billions, you can only do it if you get the billions to keep each other in order. As I was saying in the talk in Vancouver, if people want to give their minds away to the imposed norms that are foisted upon them through the education system and the media and what have you, and they want to not question what they're told is reality, not question how they're told to behave, then that's a choice, and it's a choice they have a right to make. That doesn't make it possible or easy for a few to control the world. It just makes it easier. The Rubicon that's crossed, the point that's crossed, which allows a few to control the world relatively easily once you have control of certain institutions and flows of information, is when those who have given their minds away to norms insist that those that wish to break away from norms don't do so.